Hello and welcome to my type of shit. Today we are going to be talking about the ISFJ, which is fantastic. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Michelle. My links are down below. Go ahead and like and subscribe. And to the podcast, please do that as well. But with me, we have Emily.
Hey guys, it's Emily or Pakoki. I'm an INFJ, and yeah, you guys should definitely subscribe to the podcast. Things are going to be changing pretty soon here, and yeah, I'm looking forward to some of the changes, and then sad about some other changes as well. But Shaun,
How's it going, everyone? My name's Mech. I'm an INTJ. We're coming to you with episode 17, the 15th type out of the 16, ISFJ. A lot of memes about this type. There's a good amount to talk about, honestly, with the ISFJ.
Yeah, I think they're a little underrated.
Yeah, okay. I saw a tier list once, and it was like memeing, good types, medium types or whatever, and then at the bottom it said shit tier. And then it was just the ISFJ. And I'm like, man, this is no justice for this. Like, come on, dude. That's just hate. We're going to debunk that theory this whole episode, people. So there's no bias around here. All right?
Well, bias that we like people of all different types.
Yes. The ISFJ needs more. We need to cut more slack for the ISFJ.
I agree.
You know one thing that's interesting, though? With me, I know I've seen a bunch of them. But I don't okay, I never end up having people test as it, because I feel like I'm pretty sure I there's a lot of them, like I work with some and I see them, but I never get close enough to be like, hey, you should take this test or whatever, and then they end up as ISFJ. I never get close or cool with them, if that makes sense.
I mean, that would make sense because in Socionics, you have a super ego relationship with an ISFJ. So yeah, they're very different than
they don't have anything that makes me want to there's certain people I see that are really interesting and I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk to this person. I don't think ISFJs are like that, but I also don't dislike them in any way. Mm-hmm. They don't do anything that makes me bothered about them.
Well, that's kind of like their greatest strength, though, isn't it?
Right. That's so true. That's so true. Would you consider them passive beings?
I don't know.
I think it depends on their development. They do tend to be agreeable. In general, out of the personalities, I would say ISFJ are some of the more agreeable people.
It's so weird to me that the ISFJ is the single most popular type.
Yeah. It doesn't actually blow my mind that much. Again, I mean, who can trust these? But it does seem like pretty much like your average person, 1 out of 10 could end up being an ISFJ. Just seems pretty likely. Or even more than that.
It's weird too, because I know a lot of ESFJs, but I don't know many ISFJs where I talk to them often, you know?
Well,
my sisters are ESFJs. I got some, friends of friends, mutuals ESFJs, but ISFJs, not really. Where are they all? That's the thing. If there's this many,
they're all around you.
That's what I'm saying, though.
They're everywhere.
You probably do know some ISFJs, but either they didn't type as ISFJs or you just don't know they're ISFJs.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of them that I just don't know that they're ISFJs. I think there's a ton.
I think part of that is probably because a lot of the stereotypes around ISFJs are around female ISFJs, but there are plenty of male ISFJs as well.
I don't know if male ISFJs would be... I don't know if they would like me.
A lot of them, and I'm just putting this out there, a lot of male ISFJs, probably even female, think that they're INFJs.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very common mistype.
I've even seen ISFJs mistype as INTJs, which is kind of interesting.
You know what sucks about this that disparity is INFJ is the single most rare type, and ISFJ, one letter difference, is the single most common type. So it's like this big, it's like a big deal. Like if you, I mean, okay, all mistypes should be considered a big deal because what you want is accuracy with a test like this. But this one's a bit different because you have one that's like idealized and it's like, oh, INFJ, great type, and it
Right.
gets tons of views. And then you have another one that's just washed up. Like no one wants to hear about ISFJs. That's why we're about to show them some love this episode.
I think the problem is that S is for stupid mentality, where people think, well, I'm not stupid, so I can't be an ISFJ. Well, like I'm smart, so I must be an INFJ. I think that stupid smart divide is a real problem, especially like with this type. Like, think how many people that are ISFJs think that they can't be ISFJs because they don't want to be seen as stupid.
Hmm.
They know that they're smart. They know that they're intuitive.
Dude, ISFJs are really smart. This one girl I worked with, she like had like God memory, and she like always did like the technical work. Like I don't remember. I remember actually it was like me and there was a lot of women. I've mentioned that job before. It was like me and a bunch of girls who worked there. It was like this office job, and she was like the hardest working one for sure. Like it wasn't even close. Like the second, like even I was lazier than her. I would sit there and do Sudoku sometimes, where she would just get up and like start cleaning. If there was like nothing to do, cause like sometimes there's downtime with that job, she would just start wiping stuff down or like always do something, you know. Big like she had really good work ethic. If I remember that with that ISFJ.
That's interesting because I also know ISFJs to be kind of lazy at times as well. I think if they become complacent at something, they can be very, very lazy.
It was funny, cause the few times she's lazy, she would like say it out loud, like, you know, I kind of just don't feel like answering the phone. But she says it in like like a in such a way where it's like you don't, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not bad. She's just like she almost is just being honest about her pain. I don't know. There's no manipulation tactics. There's no. It was just she was blunt about it. I don't know. She was cool.
Yeah.
But
No, that's funny you say that because I mean I had a coworker at my last job that I'm friends with that's an ISFJ, and she was very much, she would like always come up to me and be like, oh, I'm so sick of this, or like be like, but she was like working away, and she would be the one to like, if the employers asked, or like just fellow coworkers or something asked her to do something, she would get it done. And like, but also she was this type to be like, oh, I don't feel like doing anything, or like she would schedule every single day, she would be like, the last 30 minutes not want to do something.
it's funny.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, they are kind of. I mean, they are structured, I guess, right?
I mean, they are actually perceivers, but I think in work environments, they definitely come across as pretty organized.
Yeah, like robotic almost.
I wouldn't say robotic. I would describe that as like more of the ISTJ. ISFJs to me don't really come off as robotic, and in fact, they come off pretty friendly and warm. At least, and it's interesting. They have a certain sense of humor that it's hard for me to describe. I've dated one ISFJ that I know of. I might have dated more than one. But this one that I dated, he was really funny and talented at a lot of stuff. But also, I just felt kind of bored in that relationship.
I think you mentioned that in one of these episodes. You've mentioned your ISFJ relationship and about how he just watched Bob Ross all day.
Yeah, So I feel like there's like what you were saying about ISFJs being like, you know, go-getters. I think they are very capable people, but when they do get like in a rut, or if like say they have depression or something like that, it manifests itself in a very interesting way. I feel like ISFJs, like ESFJs, can easily get sucked into reality TV. I've seen that a lot with ISFJs. Or, for example, my ex-boyfriend, I mean, he's this really sweet guy, really great guy, but he partly why I broke up with him is like anytime we weren't hanging out, he would he would go to sleep, I don't know what time, and then wake up at 3 p.m. and then watch Bob Ross videos until whatever time, and like basically just not really do anything. And that's not representative of all ISFJs. I think ISFJs are very good at also taking care of themselves. Like, even though he was doing that, it was like he still took care of himself. He always looked nice. And I see that with other ISFJs as well. They don't really neglect, their appearance as much as other people. It's just very strange and interesting. But for the most part, I really get along with ISFJs, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about ISFJs personally? Michelle, you said that you had friends that are ISFJs.
Yeah, and I was a trainer last year with my work, and I had a lot of ISFJs in my classes. Something that's really interesting is like a common thread amongst all of them is that they said they weren't good at empathy, even though I highly disagreed. They all said they weren't very good at it, which is interesting that they would feel like they need to be better at their empathy because what they have isn't good enough. Though, like, compared to everyone else, they definitely had like really high empathy. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And then this one guy that I know who's an ISFJ, he and I were just hanging out one night and he was playing some guitar and he could remember all the lyrics for all these different songs. Like, you named a song and if he liked that song, he knew all the lyrics to it.
That's so interesting. I mean, that was very, very much my experience with my ex-boyfriend. He was actually a music theory major in college, and he could play almost any instrument, and he could just pick it up and just like be able to like shred on a guitar or something. And it was very impressive. Like, he is very talented, and he has dreams of like, I don't know if he still has these dreams. We dated when we were both like 23. So not too long ago, but still, he was saying that he wanted to go to California and like be a music producer. And he very well could have, because he was able to save money because he stayed at like his family's house. But I think to this day he still lives in Georgia and he hasn't pursued that dream, which, it's sad to see someone that has so much potential not push themselves out of their comfort zone. And I think that ISFJs do get stuck in their comfort zone a lot.
Yeah, I would even say that they are probably one of the more prone types to like getting into a comfort zone and staying in there.
Yeah.
I could see it for sure. I think for me, I like them, but they bore me. And I don't even want to say that in a bad way, but they just do. Like,
Yeah.
I actually wouldn't mind having them on as a teammate on like a gaming, like if I were to play a video game, that would be cool. Just because they're not gonna be annoying. Like, I think that they would like actually try to win. Like, I could see them being good teammates. I would not hate on that, but I wouldn't like go to them for interesting conversation. Like, am I missing something? I don't know.
No, I agree with you. I think it's interesting because I do have I think it just depends on the development. It's just like any personality type. There's different levels of development with the personalities, and obviously, nature and nurture plays a role as well. But that's something that I found as well with ISFJs. There's only a certain point that I can relate with them, and I think more than boring, because I use that to describe, my relationship with my ex, because it just felt like we weren't really doing any, like going anywhere in the relationship. Like, we would do stuff. He was very sweet. He would like take me to dinner and like, we would do certain things but it was like we were never able to have like really deep conversations about things. It would all be kind of surface level stuff, and that's just not really something that I can sustain for a while. But I think it's like it wasn't stimulating more than it was boring. I think it just wasn't like intellectually stimulating to me. And I'm not saying that ISFJs are, not intellectual. They actually are some of, I've met a lot of brilliant ISFJs actually. I think it really depends. Like one of my good friends, his name's Sydney, and he's an ISFJ. And at first I thought he was like even like an ISTP, because he's so like technical and like really likes, I mean, he was a computer science major and stuff, but I think he just really pushed himself, and he's just like, I don't know, I really like him as a person, and I find him so funny. I find ISFJs in general very funny people.
Yeah, that's funny. Do you think they have like good vibes?
I think for the most part, I think ISFJs can also be very fake too.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think it has to do with
Where's that come from?
extroverted feeling.
Yeah,
I do think
yeah.
extroverted feeling can be very fake, especially like in a work environment. Like, I mean, if the statistics are correct about ISFJs being the most frequent personality type, I mean, I've definitely, to be stereotypical, like I often think of like a sorority girl, just like how I think of like ESFJ kind of as a sorority girl. They're just kind of, I don't know, like, and I don't think all are like that, but they're just, they can easily have conversations with people. And I think that goes back to the empathy thing that you were talking about, Michelle. I think a lot of times ISFJs are really good at faking like the fact that they care.
Mm-hmm.
And so they think of themselves as like not being empathetic, but I think they still are.
Right.
It's like, but they are very good at pretending like they care about something and don't.
Right. It's kind of like an innate part of who they are to just kind of automatically make empathization statements. Is that a word? Like empathetic.
Empathetic statement.
Yeah, exactly. And something else I was thinking about is about the Socionics. With having extroverted intuition as their, it's called a suggestive function in Socionics. It would mean that they would want to get those new ideas from other people. So I think an ISFJ is going to be interested in people who have new things to say, but they're going to struggle a lot more with coming up with these like unique, deep, like when we say deep, I think we're meaning like philosophical, thinking about just things that don't really necessarily relate to the here and now, to like the life that we're actually experiencing, like much more big picture. I think that's what we mean by deep. They're not as prone to starting those conversations. They'd rather like consume those conversations from other people. I've recognized, like, they like being around it, and I think they really do like those kind of conversations. They just don't necessarily start those automatically. Like this one ISFJ that I knew, he wanted to have deep conversations, and he and I would have deep conversations. But if he was leading the conversation, it would normally stay at a really superficial level, like, what are your plans for the week? Like, what's the weather like, kind of conversation, which is like, I think they want to go deeper than that, but they don't necessarily know the right path to get there, and also don't feel maybe confident that they can keep up with all the new ideas once it gets into those kinds of conversations. Because having that extroverted intuition less, it's going to be a lot harder to maintain being in that state of mind of like constantly creating new ideas, because they have to reference it back to their introverted sensing and their experiences.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you're right about that. I've noticed that as well. And it's like what you were saying about they like people that have like something different to bring to the table. That's why I think, even though like, I mean, for example, my the girl that I'm thinking of that I'm friends with from my last job, there's an ESFJ that also works at that job. And she was a sweet girl in a lot of ways, like the ESFJ, but at the same time, she was very annoying. Like, I mean, in an ESFJ way, maybe other people wouldn't find it that way, but you would always know when she was in the room because she would be talking very loud. And she would kind of just talk about her life. Like anytime any of us would have a conversation, let's say we were talking about how our I don't know, our friend's brother went to the hospital and has a broken leg, she would always relate it back to herself and like be like, oh yeah, like my cousin's had a broken leg, and like go on a huge rant about it every single time. It would, and sometimes when you would talk to her, she wouldn't even say, like, it wasn't even like she would ever ask about like us and stuff. It would just be like, oh da da da, and it was in like this very, I don't know, like ESFJ way where she like acted like she was interested in the conversation. But anyways, the ISFJ that I worked with, she found her to be very annoying because she started to pick up on it that that this girl just didn't care about, like, this ESFJ girl did not care about anybody else's life but herself, and that was something that she very much got annoyed of. So even though they were able to relate on certain things, like they both watched like Bachelor in Paradise, like stuff like that, she at the same time was like, didn't really like her. And she really liked my one coworker who's an ENFP. Like I think that was her favorite person there, and would always like go to her office and talk with her because as an ENFP, as you know, Michelle, like you guys have so many different ideas and it's just an interesting conversation. So my friend really liked talking to that versus the ESFJ.
You know, I know what you're saying is true just because ESFJs do the same thing. I see my mom do it where like, yeah, it is like extroverted feeling can be kind of fake in that way because it's like, if you get her like alone and you're talking, she'll like turn on the other person sorta, and then she'll play every side sorta. I've seen it happen.
Oh yeah, that's a very ESFJ thing, is playing
So
every side.
I'm sure ISFJs do it too.
They do, but not in the same way. It's just like the difference between ENFJs and INFJs, and like ISFJs, ESFJs. Like, I mean, I definitely see the ESFJ like playing each side of every situation. It's interesting because like my nana's that way. She's an ESFJ, but yeah, I think ISFJs are they're good at like just being. I feel like ISFJs are the type of person that like if they're in a work environment that like they can thrive in any way, especially one that has like routine, they are able to like really make an impact on every single person there on an individual level. Like it's like they
Really?
have like these, yeah, because they will like talk to people. I mean, maybe not everybody, but that's something I really noticed at the office. Like I'm I like people a lot, but I'm not going to just have conversations with people to have conversations. Whereas this ISFJ that I worked with, she would have just conversations, and I guess she just enjoyed having the conversations about like, again, like daily life stuff. And so she got really close to a lot of people at work. Whereas that's something that I personally wouldn't do because I mean, I want to have a like I don't want to be so close with everybody at work. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. Um. So, what kind of like interests would ISFJs have though? Do you think? I know you mentioned the Bob Ross stuff, but that's like so cliche.
It is.
Like, there has to be something else.
Michelle, what do you think?
I feel like they're the type to be into like crafts and like knitting and.
I mean, I think they can be, but I think music is a really common one because that's something that if you just learn how to do it, you can just learn any song. Like I think that's a really appealing thing for ISFJs. Also, video games. Like Tim has a friend who I am thoroughly convinced is an ISFJ. He's really calm. He lets everybody else make the decisions when they're playing the video games. Like he never gets upset when he dies. He's just like, oh man, it's all right. You know, I could have done this better. And like he just is really relaxed the whole time. But he really likes gaming. He plays like all different kinds of video games.
I could see it. I could see it. Are there any famous ISFJs you guys know of?
I'm gonna look it up. That's pretty. We gotta work on our knowledge of famous ISFJs because none of us had a quick answer.
Dude, it's like a hard type to read.
Because it's like the most common and we can't think of like a single.
I swear that stat must be wrong.
It says Mother Teresa.
Oh yeah. I actually do think that Bob Ross is an ISFJ as well.
I could see it.
Yeah.
I mean, all his paintings follow the exact same process. There's only slight variation, which is that anything that randomly happens, but everything else is like exactly the same every single painting.
Yeah, I would say Bob Ross, definitely. I've also heard Mother Teresa, like you said. I know a lot of people, like, in my life. I mean, my godmother is an ISFJ. Like,
so is Halle Berry?
I don't know Halle Berry enough to be able to say what
I saw her on an interview. She definitely has FE. That's all I know.
Really? I've seen it where, like, I don't know how this, like, what this is, like, if this is true or not, but I've also seen, like, Selena Gomez as ISFJ, but I also think ESFJ for her. Like, I've seen it both ways. And I've also seen like Anne Hathaway as ISFJ, but she could very well be, you know, I don't know those celebrities well enough to be like, oh, I really do feel like this is.
This one I pulled up says Kanye. I think Kim Kardashian is a famous ISFJ.
Oh, Kim Kardashian.
How did I not think of Kim?
I forgot about that too, because I do think Kim is. Yeah.
She's such like a classic, what you ideate as a ISFJ is kind of like Kim Kardashian in a box. Like just watch any interview with Kim Kardashian. She's like very quiet, very reserved, very like
that is true.
Everything is very close to her body, but when she talks, it's always like about her. Like she always protects the people that she loves, that kind of stuff.
She is like, I'm on now. I had to go on her Instagram. I could totally see this being an ISFJ. Like,
I think ISFJs are really good at reading the room. You know, like the expression read the room, and I mean more so than other types. And that might be why they're able to like really relate to people. And I think that's true about Kim Kardashian. Like you can say what you want about her, like in general, but I mean she's smart in a lot of ways. Like to be able to be like as successful as she is for not really having any like apparent talents. You know, I think she really understands people, and that's one of her ways that she's been successful personally. But
yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, she promotes a lot of, like, she's very careful who she promotes, but she does promote people as well in a very smart way. I think Kim Kardashian is a great example of a smart ISFJ.
Yeah. Even though a lot of people see her as stupid. And I think that kind of happens with ISFJs. Like, I actually feel like male ISFJs overcompensate, and they almost come across a little bit douchey at first. Some male ISFJs, that's something that I've actually noticed. They will have this kind of douchey air because they're trying to be like, I don't know, the kind of more masculine. I mean, less, you know, I don't know how to describe it. I think more so than like male INFJs, like the ISFJs, like with the reading of the room kind of thing, they kind of realize, okay, in society I need to be this way, and so they'll kind of come across whatever. Like my ex-boyfriend that's an ISFJ, when I first met him, I was like, I don't like him because he was just very, very obnoxious, but not in a like extroverted way, but like in a very sarcastic.
You didn't like his FE?
He wasn't really using his FE and in a way that was like charming. It was like, oh, I'm kind of funny, but also really.
What is their lineup? SI? Is that it?
It's
FE?
SI, FE, TI,
Oh, that's
NE. So we.
that's a tough
Yeah,
one.
so you don't share any functions with them. And
That's a tough lineup, man. I can't relate to a lot of their ways of thinking. I do see them as passive people. They're, like I said, they're cool people to have around you. Like if I needed to have a roommate, an ISFJ roommate would be like a top candidate.
Yeah, that'd be a great roommate.
Oh my
it's
gosh.
pretty true.
Like that would be. I need to find me an actually. Yeah. You know what? This guy I work with might be an ISFJ, and like I don't know. I don't think he likes me because I like ego him. I don't know if he's ISFJ or not. I'm not sure. He might be.
What do you do to ego him?
Okay, so like there's when I in my job, like there's certain people, like I can detect like people that I'm gonna like a lot right away. So I kind of like go to them, and then like the other people are like cool. Like if I have to talk to them, I'll talk to them. But like I don't ever like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not gonna like put in a ton of effort to maintain the connection. And so, the problem is this wouldn't be an issue if I just did it to everyone. Like if I just didn't try to maintain a connection with anyone, it would be perfectly fine. They would just see me as like, you know, a robot who goes to work then goes home. But since I half the people I have like a strong connection with, like I'll like sometimes greet them or like crack a joke or like start a combo, and like or just be myself. But then the other half of the people I kind of like, I just try my best just to not have to associate with them. I think that they get upset, and it causes problems.
That is very interesting that you say that, because there was a time period that I wasn't really like as associated with the ISFJ that I'm friends with, like from my old work, and I could tell that from her. It's like they know when people aren't really
Yeah,
fucking with them,
exactly.
and they like it bothers them.
Yeah, and he's like annoying about it. Like he does stupid stuff. Like I don't know what to say, man.
Well,
If I thought he was cool, I would talk to him. But now he knows I don't think he's cool, so he purposely does annoying shit that pisses me off.
partly how that ISFJ and I started dating in the past is he actually just, like I said, I didn't really find him, I actually did not have a good impression of him at first.
I'm surprised you warmed up to him.
The reason why is he was friends with one of my friends at the time, and like we were kind of all in the same friend group, but he was like friends with one of my friends that we were in a friend group with. And so after like we met, I noticed that he would always like join us anytime like our friend group would be hanging out. He would show up. He always was like showing up, and I think that's a really good representation of ISFJs. They are pretty reliable. They will show up.
That's true.
Like,
That's true.
And that was what kind of got him, is like he would just show up. And I thought he was an INFJ actually at a time. But then I realized that he really was the one that like found out that he was an ISFJ. That's not something that like I necessarily came up with. It was something actually we talked about it a lot, and he determined in himself, and I also observed it from him. But yeah, he was very much, he just would invite us to things and I would come. That was it.
I'm really curious, what do you think are like the main differences between an INFJ and an ISFJ?
It's hard to put into words, but there definitely are a lot. I would say number one the ability to have like small talk is like a very apparent one. I think ISFJs are way better at small talk and kind of finessing situations at first. Like I do notice with like INFJs, it takes a while to like warm up to a situation, whereas ISFJs can kind of jump into things a lot faster.
You mean like if you guys were going to a party, the ISFJ would just like quickly be talking to everyone?
No. Like in a work environment, not necessarily
Okay.
at a party. I actually find at parties they're pretty keep to themselves.
I see.
It really depends. Like, like I said, I think ISFJs have more of a tendency to become complacent. It's like, to me, it's very clear, like that, like any ISFJ I've seen very like on the surface, I've seen so much potential with them. Yet it seems like they are very stuck in, they can be very susceptible to get stuck in their ways and just kind of go through the motions of life because they do like certain routines. Like an ISFJ is one that will, if they have something, a routine in mind, and this could be on the good or bad spectrum. So for example, maybe a more developed or healthier ISFJ may have like a good routine where every morning they wake up and they go to the gym and then they do this and then they do that and then they do that, and that's like their whole routine. Whereas like, for example, my old ex-boyfriend, and I'm not saying that he still does this, who knows, I hope he doesn't, but like anytime he wasn't doing something, it was like his routine was to wake up at like 3 p.m., like I said, and then go through that. It's like they very much can get in a loop, and it's very difficult for them to get out of that loop. Whereas INFJs, if they are like maybe in a rut, INFJs have like the NI to be able to be like, okay, I can get out of this. And so they may get into different kinds of, they would have just a different type of rut than like an ISFJ, I feel like. I think with an INFJ, it would be a little bit more dramatic, and it would be like they wouldn't necessarily be in that routine of, I don't know.
Fair. What role do you think that the introverted thinking plays with this type? Because I don't have much of a sample size for it, but having that in the third slot, you have that in the third slot, Emily.
Yeah.
But what difference do you think that makes with the introverted thinking?
I mean, that's why I think we can come across very similarly. Is like the fact that we have, I'm pretty sure in Socionics we're the lookalike type, which for you, Shaun, would be like an ISTJ.
I like them.
Yeah, so it's like I very much get along with ISFJs. It's like they do have like the TI and the same area, so it's like they kind of figure things out in a similar way. They may go about it differently, but they do kind of figure it out. Oftentimes with an ISFJ, I would find that I would more often than not figure out maybe certain situations before them, whereas like they could still figure out like things that I wouldn't necessarily think about faster than me, but it was like in a very, if I was to do it, so like give whatever example, I would probably do it in a very similar means and vice versa to figure something out. That's just something I've noticed. But fair. I think having SI and NI and the spots that they are make it appear differently.
Well, Michael Pierce noted one thing that's different about me and the ISTJ is that I am using past experiences to leap into the future, whereas the ISTJ uses past experiences to like avoid, bad things in the future.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, actually. I do find with ISFJs, and I've noticed this just with like introverted sensors or extroverted intuitors in general is like they very much can pinpoint a single memory, like moment in time, and like kind of have that association so strongly that it's like difficult for them to like do certain things if it has like a very negative emotion tied to it, because they don't want to experience that again. Like I know the ISFJ that I worked with was going through a breakup, and he, like the guy that she dated him for like 3.5 years. He would like, they would go run in the same kind of social circles, and anytime she went to a certain like area downtown or like wherever, you know, there would be like a bench that she would remember them sitting on or something like that. I think there's like this movie, I can't think of the name of it. It recently came out. It's a Netflix movie. It was about this girl that was in a relationship, and I mean, if anybody knows in the comments, let me know. It's a girl that was in a relationship. Pretty sure she was the actress from Jane the Virgin. So if you guys know this movie, but anyway, she like was in a relationship, and she was like, during the whole movie, she was kind of circling back the memories that she had with this ex-boyfriend and trying to, like, she wanted to get back with him and like relive those memories. I find that to be a very, I mean, I feel like that character might have even been an ISFJ. It's interesting, but
Fair enough. I got some pros and cons here. Help spark up some points that we might remember from this test, or I don't know why I said that, from this type. I guess we should start with the pros. It says you are adept at seeing the right balance, the best way to make the world look and feel great. This talent enables you to make your world reflect your inner self and become a piece of security and growth in which others can feel at ease too.
yeah.
Hmm.
I think that goes both into, you know, being kind of creatures of comfort and also being able to finesse situations. I find ISFJs very similar to that kind of finessing, and like it's different but similar to like an ENFP. I think ENFPs are very good at finessing situations, but it's in a, I feel like ENFPs, when they're in social situation, it's almost like they're just very intriguing people. Like ENFPs just come across as very intriguing. Like they always have their own thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas ISFJs are kind of just very much relatable. It's like if Friends
That
was
is
a
a good way of wording
personality
it.
type, you know, the movie, I mean the show Friends.
Mm-hmm.
If Friends was a personality type, it would probably be an ISFJ.
That's such a great statement, though.
That's funny.
That's so true.
She's spitting 2 facts in a row. That's crazy, man. We like that is. It just seems like the kind of show, though, that an ISFJ would.
We should type shows as people.
Alright,
Yeah, actually, that actually is a good idea. Put me on that, guys. If personality would be an ISFJ.
We're patenting that idea. Don't. If we see that anywhere,
No one else
we're
can
coming
take
for you.
it. Well,
we're
know
coming
that
for
found
you
it.
if you come
I'm
with an
kidding.
idea.
Someone do it and make it better than ours.
Yeah,
Alright,
there
here we
we
go.
We're gonna do it.
We have you have a gift for knowing what will make another person feel better about the world and themselves. Your valuable input to the world comes back to you in ways which aid your own personal development. Yeah, I could see that. Like,
I feel like the first half of that is like what I was saying about their empathy.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Well, and they have so this is partly it. They have it's just like they have a natural ability to remember like small details that people say.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a conversation with an ISFJ, like if they actually were actively listening to you, and you have another conversation with them, they're going to remember those details. Like, for example, I just recently started dating someone, and that ISFJ was very like shook by that, because she's like, what? You started dating this person? She's like, you're going to have to tell me all about it next time you come back to Greenville. It's just like, they kind of just are very on it with people and details.
Yeah. I remember one time I brought up like this was like I was still young, immature, and stuff. It was also my first job, but I brought up abortion in the workplace, and like the ISFJ was mad as hell. Like, well, like just thinking about the idea that like it's okay. Like she thought it was wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was a big mistake that day. I learned my lesson. Not to
Like,
bring that up around.
well, I think that is kind of maybe where you may, like, kind of maybe not always get along with it, or you might butt heads with an ISFJ. So, like I said, with ISFJs, they're just very much read the room type people, whereas INTJs are just like, they don't give a shit.
I'm in my own world. How can
They're not trying to read the room. I think INTJs will if they find it to be of benefit to them, but in normal situations, especially like you said, as a younger INTJ,
yeah,
that seems like a rookie move there.
for sure it was. It's okay though. I learned the hard way. You could going through with the pros of the ISFJ. You can see clearly what is right and wrong, what grates on yourself and others, what works for harmony and what does not. Your clear recognition of these things gains you the confidence and respect of others.
I think that's like exactly what Emily was saying earlier.
Yeah.
They have a good sense of morality, you think?
Well, and they're able to relate to people very well. Like, that's what I mean, like, even with, like, reading the room, that's basically what was just said, what just described, but also, like, how I was saying connections with people, especially at a workplace, it's like, they kind of will, it's like they're able to, like, juggle all these relationships, like, kind of surface level relationships that are kind of very deep to them and they find meaningful. To me, I just would be very drained by that, but they are just, like, very good at it.
Right. And then that comment that's about being able to tell the difference easily between right and wrong, I think is one of the statements you just said. That's totally SIFE right there, because they're able to know what everyone thinks about the morality and being able to know which one is like socially right and which one's socially wrong. And they might have opinions that differ outside of that. Like you might have one that's like a social justice warrior. But for the most part, they're going to go with what's around them as right or wrong.
Yes. And that's why it's like a rookie move to, I mean, which you understand, to say like abortion. But no, and that's exactly right, Michelle, because the same friend is, she actually is like, she is like liberal. And living in South Carolina, especially Greenville, that's a very conservative area. So most of the people at our office were huge Trump supporters and older. And so she obviously couldn't express her opinions about politics with people. There's only like a couple of people that weren't, including myself. So she was able to talk with me on that, but it was like hush hush. Like she would be like very secretive and sneaky when we were talking because she just didn't want anybody to hear. So
it's ridiculous. Yeah,
it's funny.
Yeah, I've advanced myself in politics far beyond that point, but I think that will be mentioned in the INTJ episode, but that's a different topic. We got other points here. You have a great memory for things, places, and events. There are curious details and the relationships between them. More than this, you also remember what was good and bad about these things. These skills show in your ability to give no-nonsense advice and aid to others. They kind of can, like, you know what's funny? For such a soft type, they kind of can, like, give it to you a little bit. Like, they can word it pretty, like, you know, they could tell you what's up. Like,
I mean, they also can be savage too. I mean, like an ISFJ mad is like they will cut throat. Like they are just like the good qualities about them, how they're able to read the room and kind of find out what's good and bad very easily. They're very good at like finding people's insecurities. And if they're like vindictive or mean or like in a bad mood or something, they can like shut you down real quick and make you like reconsider everything in your life. So
we got here, you work hard to get the job done and can be counted on to stay with it till it's finished. That's definitely true. ISFJs who develop their FE will also have these special gifts. Work is never a chore to you, but a gift you offer to the world. That's kind of funny, actually. In your relationships, you are able to clearly show others how you feel about them. That's a developed trait?
Well, I mean, that's definitely the FE. And with this site, they have the pattern of like the developed person is someone who's good at their auxiliary function.
Fair. Others will always feel at ease in your home and presence. Yeah, that's like an ESFJ thing too. Maybe ISFJ would take a bit of a different approach, but I could see it.
I think ISFJs actually can be less abrasive than ESFJs in a lot of ways. I think ESFJs come on a little too strong sometimes, and like I said, come across a bit annoying, whereas ISFJs don't really have that.
That's true. ISFJs are a little bit more. They'll give you the emotion, but they won't like kind of cram it as much.
Yeah.
Your efforts always seem to be appreciated by those around you. I don't see how that could be a thing. This just doesn't make sense to me, because it's like, it's saying it's but this is weird to me. Your efforts always seem to be appreciated by those around you. So if they do something, how can you ever account for other people? Isn't that completely random?
Yeah.
Wait, say that one more time.
Your efforts always seem to be appreciated by those around you.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like the ISFJ is one of the more dependable types that, like, if they're given a job and they know how to do it, they're going to do it and they're going to do it right. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, in a workplace scenario, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, honestly, she was appreciated by everyone there. I'm not going to lie.
Everyone would like them. They'd have no reason to dislike them.
Right, she grinded the hardest. She ended up getting like a raise the fastest. I don't know. That was pretty cool. She was a good worker. I appreciated her. I know everyone else did. You will try to find pleasing ways to settle differences and to find the most satisfying solutions to both of your own and others' difficulties. Interesting one. That's just like yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. And then I'll read one more. More often than not, you will know exactly the right thing to do, buy or create, to make things better or move things toward a valid human solution to it. That's they're wording this ridiculous. I don't know. Let's just go to the cons here. Some of these are pretty technical. Here we got potential problem areas. Now, I don't think I've ever read this for the ISFJ, but this list is kind of long, to be honest. May find difficulty expressing their feelings without fear or anger.
What was that?
May find difficulty expressing their feelings without fear or anger.
Yeah.
Explain this to me.
So, like, I would say, I mean, this is something I've witnessed from ISFJs when they're upset about something. They do tend to kind of go off the handle a little bit. Like, it's very difficult for them to, like, hold back if they're really feeling something. So, like, for me, like, in a situation, for example, like, let's say I had, an ex-boyfriend or something, I wouldn't, like... I feel like ISFJs are the type of person that, like, let's say their ex was like, you're like a piece of shit, or like say something like mean to them. They'll go off like in text or like even in person. Like they'll they'll come at them in a way.
Would Kim K
Like,
do this?
She had. I mean, she's been dramatic about certain things. Like, I think they can be very dramatic and like kind of blow it out of proportion in the moment, because of all the SI experiences that they have. Like, if, for example, in this X situation, and like the X comes at them, especially if they've been with them for a number of years or whatever time, they would be very much the type to really kind of over-explain and like get into it. Whereas like for me, I feel like I'm a bit, maybe this isn't representative of INFJs, but I'm just like, I just don't fuck with it. And I'm just like, I'll give them the okay or like cool or something like that. And I will not feed into it.
I think that's actually a major difference between an SI dominant and an introverted intuition dominant, is that SI is like very much so about the individual experiences, and they will be able to recall all those individual experiences in the moment in an argument when it's heated, whereas like an INFJ oppositely would more so comment on patterns and what's become really frequent and those kinds of things. So they're kind of, I think, just not able, like in a fight situation, I just feel like neither one would really accept the other one's like proof, so to speak, because it would be coming from different modes that wouldn't be really like compatible.
Yeah, I think you're right, because like when I broke up with the ISFJ guy, again, we ended on, well, I originally this wasn't when we broke up, but we had a conversation that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back in that situation, and I just really like felt like it just was not going anywhere. And so I like told him, because he just like, it was almost like, I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but it was a situation where he just kind of didn't do anything, and I like felt like, okay, he just doesn't even care. And so I expressed that to him via text. And then he like very much explained that he was like, he really liked me, but he didn't know how to say it, and like just kind of like very much put in a lot of detail there, whereas like I wouldn't have necessarily done that. And so it is interesting how they like will pinpoint different examples, and like, whereas for me it's like a pattern thing. So
there's many more points here. Maybe unable to correctly judge what really is for the best. That's a weird one.
mm-hmm.
I feel like anyone could have that.
I don't know about, have you met an INTJ? I'm kidding.
Okay. I would say that primarily what I think that's worded very broad. But
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but what I think they're, maybe alluding to is with the SI, they will, I mean, even with this girl, that I'm, friends with, or even like my ex-boyfriend, they'll like try to hold on to something that is obviously not good for them. If it like, I mean, for example, my relationship, it wasn't a bad relationship by any means. Like, he's not a bad person. He has a lot going for him. He's, sweet guy, stuff like that. I just knew there wasn't really a future with that relationship. But it wasn't like we like fought, or like where it was like an abusive relationship or something like that. But he just like really wanted to hold on to the comfort of like being in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very much a thing that ISFJs will do, even though it wouldn't be like something that would really, bring as much value as maybe him being with someone else that would push him more, or like was more compatible with him. And then as far as my friend goes, like her boyfriend, it's like that was a very toxic situation, her ex-boyfriend in some ways, but she just like, I don't know now, but there was a certain point, and she even admitted it, that she would take him back because she just really like missed that comfort, even though she ultimately knew that it wouldn't work out. It's just interesting.
Mm-hmm. We got here. May strongly suspect others of having hidden motives or agendas.
I agree. I think so. They're very good at like I said, finding out people's insecurities, and I actually can relate to this. Actually, I feel like I can find out people's motives pretty easily as well. I don't always act like I know. I think ISFJs more so will be more apparent about it, like if they do feel like they know someone's motive.
Is that a FE thing or what?
Could
FETI?
be.
We got here. May be unable to shrug off feelings impending disaster.
Yeah.
May be unable to acknowledge or hear anything that goes against their certainty about the correct or right way to do things.
Goes back into their comfort.
Close-mindedness, really.
It's not even being closed-minded. It's just like, I wouldn't really even describe them as closed-minded. It's just that they're very much comfort-oriented.
I could feel that. That's a good word. Well worded again. May have a tendency to blame particular persons for disturbing or upsetting their world by simply being who they are.
Yes. My friend Anna, who's an ENFP, her mom is an ISFJ. And I mean, not to get into it too much, I know Anna can speak for herself, but I know if Anna was here, she would probably say a lot about her mom. And her mom does tend to do that with her. Like, she'll just kind of not really accept her necessarily for who she is, which is, and kind of be very blaming. And not even just with her, but like with other people, just kind of blame everybody for her problems.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a bummer.
It is.
May come across as cold and insensitive to anything but another's ability to fit in with and support their own judgment.
Yeah, I think that's why like ISFJs, I feel like, do like what Michelle was saying about like ISFJs thinking that they're not empathetic. That's happened with almost all the ISFJs that I know. And that's why I think that ISFJs could have the tendency to type as an INTJ.
Damn, what the hell?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Well, I think SI is often confused for NI.
I agree. I think they just look really similar, like, because their behaviors are going to be really similar because it's like a lot of rumination in the mind, a lot of like thinking about things that you know. It's just like where it's directed, right? Because like SI is like more directed on past experiences, whereas NI is more directed on patterns. But they both function the way that they actually work very similarly, and I think it's hard to differentiate the two sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe oblivious to what others think about them.
Yeah.
Well, they get used to knowing what people think about them, so they feel confident that they can read it well.
I think that was well put, Michelle. I mean, I've definitely seen that with them. That's the thing. I think exactly what Michelle said, because, okay, this is maybe the downfall of an ISFJ is like they, especially in a work environment, I find that ISFJs can be also the type that could maybe even get into a sticky situation in a work environment because they get too close to people and they get kind of comfortable with like getting too close to people that, maybe the people that are not close to them will see, that kind of seems like a fishy situation. Whether or not it is a fishy situation, like the ISFJ won't even see it as like, oh, it's like, or I'm just like talking to this person. It's not a big deal. Whereas other people may even see it as like something that may not be appropriate for work. And also ISFJs do kind of, even with the people that do like them or they think that they like them, they'll kind of get comfortable in that and kind of go through the routine of talking to them and stuff. and at a certain point may not even be reading the other person accurately. So
Right, kind of going off their experience of how that person reacts instead of like being able to see what's actually happening.
yeah.
Kind of like, SE ignoring.
Yeah.
Maybe extremely vulnerable to tricks, con men, false hopes, religious cults, and conspiracy theories.
Interesting. I think that kind of ties into the whole reality television stuff.
Well, ESFJs have the same flaws, so. But probably not nearly as bad. Who knows? Let's see. A lot of these are also similar. Let me get one more good one.
Just to comment on that point, I do find that ISFJs are very much into trends and will kind of go on the bandwagon of certain things. Like, I mean, Kim Kardashian is a pretty good embodiment of that, where she's very much on brand and on trend, and you will find ISFJs will kind of go with the herd on certain things just because it's trendy or just because, whatever else.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Like, you'll never see Kim Kardashian like pushing boundaries with what she does.
If she does, she'll make sure that it's the boundary that she's pushing is something that would be considered pleasing or attractive. Like, for example, I do think she pushed the boundaries on her looks, in the sense of getting, the plastic surgeries, like the butt implants and stuff like that. But she also knows that that's very trendy right now, where, and so, whereas I feel like her sister Kylie Jenner, who I believe maybe is an ESFP, she very much does kind of push the envelope on certain things.
She definitely does.
And like, that's definitely where Kim is not the same. Like, yeah.
It says, under great stress are likely to make outrageously harsh and uncaring, selfish, survival-oriented decisions.
Yes.
Under great stress, do they actually stress? Look,
yeah, they do.
They can stress. Anyone can stress. Shut up.
Well, I think they get stressed out when things go out of their comfort zone, which could often happen if they're not in a very controlled environment. But for example, for my friend who, she was in a relationship and then they broke up, that's not something that she necessarily was foreseeing because, he broke up with her. So that was like a very stressful time for her. So
that's about it for the cons as well. Personally, I think this is a type that I like as like an acquaintance, but probably wouldn't want to invest really a lot into. I don't hate them by any means. They don't do anything that, like, there's no traits about them that I dislike. Other than that, it's like for me, and like I said, I'm not trying to hate, but like, it's like eating a potato chip when I could eat like a spicy nacho Dorito. It's like, it's not that the potato chip is bad. It's just that like the spicy nacho Dorito has tons more flavor. I don't know. I feel like the type needs more going for it for me to really, really like them. But they don't do anything wrong.
That's why Friends is a really good analogy for an ISFJ. It's like you're on Netflix. Well, yeah, because you're a little boy. I'm just kidding.
I need a child.
I'm what?
No, but Friends has been actually like blowing up for some reason.
Dude, it's popular with Gen Z.
Well, it's because of Netflix too.
Like, my generation actually likes it.
Yeah, because my generation grew up with it. No, I'm just kidding. But I have been watching it since I was like 5 or something.
Yeah, it came out I think in 1994. Might have been even earlier than that, actually.
I wasn't even born yet.
I'm gonna Google it.
We were definitely very young, for sure.
Yeah, 1994.
Okay.
So I would have been a baby.
We were both like 1 year old, potentially. Maybe even not even 1 year old when it came out. So, I mean, yesterday was Shaun's birthday.
Oh my god, you're putting me
Whoop,
out there
whoop.
on the cast. Come on now.
He's 21
Yeah.
What is that?
But
By the time though that this is up, I probably won't be that day. So yeah, but yeah. Follow our socials, guys. Subscribe to the podcast. Um, this was a good episode compared to what I thought it was gonna be like. This type, I don't know. I guess I guess if we had more famous ones, I would.
It's just there's so many.
I know, it's
But
such a
it's
weird
like
type. It's such a weird type.
I wonder how many celebrities are mistyped because we don't want to type them as ISFJ.
and it's like ISFJ isn't a bad type though.
It's not, but it has a stigma.
Yeah.
It does.
It's true.
But we need to break the stigma. Hashtag break the
Oh,
stigma.
no. All right, let's give us your opinions on ISFJs below, and until next time.
Bye.
Bye.